So we start our next unit, trig applications, by continuing our study of graphs of trig functions with reciprocal trig graphs. So while it's not really an application, it's just a nice place to pick up where we left off from our basic unit circle trig and trig graphs. So you got a piece of paper with the three parent trig functions on it, and from those we're going to draw our reciprocal graphs. So first we start with sine, and we think of values on that graph and its reciprocal. Well, the sine of 1, or the reciprocal of 1 is 1. So we keep the points 1 and -1. The 0 is undefined. So where there was a 0 on my parent graph becomes an asymptote. So every 0 on your parent graph becomes an asymptote because the 0 is undefined. So what happens is with the reciprocal of sine, or cosecant graph, you have two 1s and a bunch of asymptotes. Between your asymptotes, where you had a bump, you draw what I call a valley, and where you had a valley, you draw a bump, because they're reciprocals, they're opposites. So it's like little parabolas between your asymptotes. So there's a graph of cosecant x. The good news is you only need to be able to do that much with it. We don't mess with amplitudes or anything like that. So here's our parent cosine graph. So graph its reciprocal, we do the same thing. The reciprocal of 1 stays 1. The reciprocal of 0 is undefined, so I draw an asymptote. The reciprocal of -1 is -1. 0 becomes an asymptote, and the reciprocal of 1 is 1. Math is consistent, so I draw bumps where I see valleys and valleys where I see bumps, and sometimes it's just pieces in between the asymptotes. So here we have the graph of y equals secant x, the reciprocal of cosine. Think about your reciprocal values and go from there. Here's our parent tan graph. Do the same thing. The reciprocal of each 0 is an asymptote. This one gets messy because I'm starting with asymptotes. The reciprocal of undefined is 0. So for my cotangent graph, I take every 0 on tan and turn it into an asymptote. Asymptote on tan and turn it into a 0. The reciprocal of 1 is 1. The reciprocal of -1 is -1. And so I connect the points between my asymptotes. And I really get a graph that looks almost like a reflection of tan for cotan. And there is your cotan graph. So there are your three reciprocal trig graphs. The good news again is you only have to be able to graph those. We don't mess with them. And usually on the Regents exam, it's recognition. It's being able to look at a multiple choice question and know which graph is which. So not too big of a deal for our first day of trig apps. That is it for me. No transformations. Have a great night.